me, Chinmayananda, in a different body. Therefore, I'm always there with you. I never die. So my humble pronouns to Pujya Gurudev in Vivekji's body. As you all know, Vivekji does not need any introduction. Vivekji visited Chinmaya Sanjeevani several times in the past 5 years. And in the next year or so, he's going to visit every month, and he's going to spend his time for 1 full week with us. Without further ado, I will hand over the mic to Acharya Vivekji to enlighten us on the topic of today, which is free will and destiny. Thank you very much.
Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Carrying along with the message of Pujya Swami Chinmayananda, his first discourse was in December of 1951. And we just visited the Rastapita temple in Pune where he spoke. And he sat to the right of the main deity, and 3 people sat in front of him. And at that time, he was doing his own publicity. See, now we have publicity teams, we have PR departments, etc. He would wear like a bandana and big glasses and ride on the back of a bike while someone else would be pedaling, not a motorcycle. Pedaling. And he'd have this code, and he'd say, Swami Chinmayananda is speaking on this and this subject tonight at this place, and so on. And all day, he would do this publicity. And then, when the time of the discourse came, the bike would ride up to the stage, and he'd stand off, and he'd take his bandana and glasses off and come on stage and start to speak. At that time, there were many, many, many orthodox thinkers and speakers who said, you cannot share Shruti, you cannot share the scriptures in public. You cannot do this in English. This is a foreign language. And there'll be women in the audience too. If you do this, your tongue will fall out. If you do this, your head will explode. So very sattvic death threats. And your tongue will fall out and your head will explode. But they are death threats. And we can laugh at that, but imagine we received such a letter. Whatever it is that we were doing wrong, we would stop it immediately. But not Pujya Swami Chinmayananda, because he knew what he was doing was right. Was that. And instead of reacting to such threats, he very intelligently, very lovingly shared with such people Mother Shruti will only go to that listener who is ready. She will not go to someone who is not ready. While I'm speaking, those who are not ready will either be sleeping or mishearing. But she simply will not go to such people. Why should we worry about sharing her when she's the one who decides who she goes to? Isn't it true? In our lives, when we're trying to focus so much, we just don't hear or don't understand. And times when we're not supposed to be tired, we had our coffee, we slept well at night, how come I'm so tired right now? That's Mother Shruti saying, hey, this person is ready and that person is not ready. The way that Pujaswami Tejamayana shares this, he says there's 3 types of listeners when it comes to such Vedantic forums. Number 1 is the Shrota. Shrota means the one who listens. Number 2 is the Sota. And they do it, and then they look around and they're very embarrassed, but then they just keep on doing it. So the Sota, the one who sleeps during this time. And the third, we don't see too often because of Costco. What is it that every Indian buys at Costco? Especially when you're going to India? Nuts, right? Walnuts, almonds, peanuts, whatever it is. Back in the day, every home you went to, there was a glass bowl with walnuts and a cracker. That's called a sarota. That instrument that cracks walnuts is a sarota. So the third type is a sarota. And everything that's being shared, they question that. I don't believe that. Prove that to me. I don't like you, etc., etc., etc. The topic that we are going to take up tonight will only go to those who are ready. This is one of the most favorite topics of people. Whether religious or not religious, everybody likes talking about this. And not just once or twice, forever. In some of the discussions that I've done for 6 years, every few months I have to talk about this again and again and again. To understand this topic, we have to understand perspective. So many famous proverbs that we come across. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What I think is beautiful, another person may think is ugly. One person's trash is another person's treasure. Perspective again. And we have so many perspectives like that. And we love writing them and emailing them to other people. We never follow them. They're just good to send to you. When we take up this subject, to understand this subject, to appreciate this subject, we have to understand and appreciate this is simply a perspective. Another point that we need to understand and appreciate this is context. A joke that Pujaswami Tejamayana shared. A husband was in very good shape physically. So a wife's friend had said, hey, your husband's in good shape. Why? What kind of exercise does he do? And she said, he's an expert at jumping to conclusions all day. We are experts in taking a subject matter out of context, misinterpreting. And it's partly not our fault. Most of the media forums capitalize on that. I remember watching The Simpsons, and the broadcasters had shared, President Bush has died. And then there's a pause, his hair. Right? Totally taken out of context, such a shock value. That this has to be taken in the right context. And we do it all the time. Whenever we talk to Balavihar students, then we're careful about the words that we use because they may not be able to understand and appreciate those words. I think I had shared this in South Hills. When I had taken these young adults to India, I told them what was going to happen on the train. And I told them that you're going to meet some cross-dressers who are going to force money out of you. But in front of the Balaguer students, I never said that. I said there's going to be some interesting people who are going to come and they're going to clap like this. But I never got into the details of what was going to happen, right? Because they may not understand that context. We have to be careful as we explore this subject. The theme for tonight's discourse is free will versus fate. Now, all of the introduction I've given makes sense. I said Shruti will only go to the person who's ready. I said that this is a favorite topic of everyone, that it's about perspective, and we have to take it in the right context. This is the introduction. Let's take the former statement, free will. Who do you believe you are today? We believe we are the egos. We may be reading otherwise, but we believe we're the ego. I believe I'm this body. I believe I'm this mind. I believe I'm this intellect. When someone judges this body good, I feel good. When someone judges the body negatively, I feel bad. When my mind is racing, I feel agitated. When my intellect is attached to an ideal, I feel uplifted. If I wasn't the body, mind, and intellect, I wouldn't be affected by any of this. But I'm affected by all of this. So who am I today? I am the ego. I am learning otherwise, but today, this is who I believe I am. If we go deeply into the core and expression of the ego, it is separation. What is the ego? The ego is separation. Separation from what? The total. Separation from each other. As the ego, I feel some presence. I feel present here, but I don't feel present there. I feel I'm somewhat knowledgeable. I know the subjects I've studied, but I don't know about polymers. I don't know about mechanical engineering. And I have some power. I can influence this person, I can lift this, I can buy this, but I can't influence that person. And I can't buy something else over there. I feel separate. So some presence, some knowledge, some power. I keep reflecting on this word separation and what comes with separation. What is assumed as long as I believe I am separate is that I am the doer. Right? It's only me. I'm separate, so I'm the one who does. It can't be you. We're separate. I'm the one that is doing. This assumption is built in to separation. This is why we are hyperactive when it comes to karma. We are all karma kandis. And many of us may think, hey, that's an insult. But think about it. If someone had asked you for funds to support publishing of scriptures, or to pay off a mortgage, or something like that, right? We'll say, yeah, fine, the scriptures will publish themselves. So someone else will look after the mortgage. What rush are you in? But can you sponsor a murti? Can you pay for this puja? Right? Then definitely one is willing to give. See, we study the Jnana Kanda, but at the end of the day, we are karma kandis. Where are we putting our money? That shows what we believe in. Even when we study contemplation, it always starts with doing something. Do this with your body, then do this with your breath, then do this with your mind, then do this with your intellect. But what is contemplation? Contemplation is not doing, it is being. It's quite different. But as long as I believe that I'm the ego, then I am lost in doing. One of our acharyas had said, You know, the Nike slogan is just do it. There should be one that says meditation, just don't do it. That's what we should be inclined towards. And wherever there is a sense of doership, there is a sense of deservership. I did it, so I deserve it. I put in so much work, so I should get such compensation. I should get such praise. I should get such stature. And this model of I am the doer and I am the deserver is actually not that bad because it helps people to feel responsible. But see how conniving we are? We believe we're the doer, but when something bad happens, I don't deserve this. So how come this happened? People ask, why do bad things happen to good people? How many of us have asked that question? Why do bad things happen to good people? And Puja Swami Tejamayana had addressed this question. And his first thought was, are we good people? Right? We love to assume that we are good people. It's easy to assume that. Are we truly good people? And the way that he presented this, suppose your neighbor is pouring paint into the drain on your street, and you saw them one night. And they came to you and said, hey, I know I'm doing the wrong thing. I'll give you $100. You just forget about what you saw. You'll say, no, this is my water. This is what I have to drink. Fine, I'll give you $1,000. Forget it. This is my health. I'll give you $10,000. All of a sudden, there's a pause. I'll give you $100,000. What paint? keep going. See, our goodness has a value in this case, a quantitative value. If one truly believes they're the doer, and so one truly believes they're the deserver, then whatever good or bad that comes, one must embrace. Okay, free will. Let's go back. I believe I'm the ego, so I'm separate. In my separation, it is only I, and I do and I deserve, because that's what I do as a separate entity. And in doing and in deserving, I should be responsible. Now let's think, is this perspective true? Am I the ego? Am I separate? Am I doing? Am I deserving? Isn't it that we should surrender our ego? The highest form of devotion is Atma Nivedana. That's the 9th form of bhakti, that you have to go through these first 8 till finally one is ready for Atma Nivedana. We did this in our Paduka Puja yesterday. Why are our scriptures, why are the sages telling us to practice letting go of the ego, if that's who I am? Is it true that I'm the ego? And whenever an entity is false, which we're presuming here, the scriptures and sages are saying you're not the ego, then anything that expresses from the ego is false as well. I'll put some context to this. During the Mahabharata, the Pandavas had a palace created for them by Duryodhana and company. And what was this palace made up of? Wax. It was made up of wax. And the intention was that at some point that they will light this palace on fire, and all of the Pandavas, these brothers, will die. And think, anything that's made up of wax, whether it's a palace or a computer or a microphone stand or clothing or a candle, will be flammable. This palace, though it didn't seem like it was made up of wax, they were told that it is, so they built this tunnel to escape. Just because it's in the shape of a palace doesn't make it non-flammable. It's still flammable. So if the ego is false, everything that the ego believes is also false. Anything made up of wax is flammable. Anything made up of wood is flammable. They carry the same properties. You can change the name and form, property remains the same. If the ego is a phantom, everything that the ego expresses is also a phantom. So this idea of free will, is it true? If you're saying yes, who's saying that? This exercising of free will, who's saying it? It's the ego. Then you have to tell me that the ego is true, that you are separate. Think at a highly practical level. Did you give birth to yourself? Do you function by yourself? Separation is a myth. Yesterday, a group of us watched the movie The Great Debaters. Good movie. Everyone should watch it together. And it was so sad to see how a certain community, just because of their skin color, are treated so poorly. All of a sudden, they're separate because of their skin color? Even now, I can change my skin color. If I was in a tanning bed all day, I would look quite different. If I wore Fair and Lovely all day, I would look different. Right? And that makes us separate. What is the truth? The truth is oneness. The truth is infinity. The truth is existence. This is the truth, whether we accept or acknowledge or appreciate this. There is oneness. And in this oneness, there is not some presence, there is total presence. There's not some knowledge, there is total knowledge. There's not some power, there is total power. If I can rise up to this perspective, how should I live my life then? This is where fate comes in. In oneness, there is no free will. There is only fate. So now, I'm trying to rise to the truth. And I have to live as if this is all fate. How would one's life change then? It would be like being in a play. So you're acting, son, daughter, king, queen, whatever it is. The play's already set. This is what's going to happen. How should you be during this play? One should be an observer. Watch what happens to the body. Watch what happens to the mind, to the intellect. Be an observer. How many times have our scriptures and sages said, practice sakshi bhava? Just watch. When we observe, we are not limited. If you and I stand outside of the street and watch the cars go by, are we limited by the cars? If there's a car gets a flat tire, am I suffering because of that? If there's a rich car that goes by, am I better because of that? No, just watch. So if this body becomes ill, this is what was supposed to happen. If the mind is like this, it's supposed to happen. If the intellect's like this, it's supposed to happen. So it's not about I'm the doer. I become the observer. The doing is happening, and I observe the doing happening. And because I'm not the doer, the natural next step is I'm not the deserver either. And this is where the idea of surrender comes in. Whatever happens, I accept it. Most of the time, we have a Hanumanji here. Suppose there's Bhagavan Vishnu and Mother Lakshmi here. Who do people come to worship? Bhagavan Vishnu or Bhagavan Lakshmi? Bhagavati Lakshmi. So in Niagara Falls, in our ashram, we have Bhagavan Krishna and Bhagavati Radha there. So one day, Bhagavan Krishna and Bhagavati Radha, this was before our ashram was going to open for our Sunday session, they were talking to each other. And Bhagavan Krishna was saying, you know, our Balavir Satsang at Chinmay Dhara is about to begin, and all of your devotees are coming. He's elbowing Bhagavati Lakshmi. She says, Lord, what are you talking about? They're all coming to worship you. You are Bhagavan Krishna. He says, you wait and watch. Okay? So people start coming in at various times, and the first person comes and says, you know, tomorrow is, later today, it's Sunday, and the big jackpot is going to be announced. And I put my $2 in for my ticket, so if you can make sure those numbers come up, then I will give you some of give you some of that. So, and then they go in, and Lord Krishna secretly says, see, they're praying to you, not to me. Next person comes. My son is getting a little bit older. I don't know if he's going to find a girl, so Mother Lakshmi, please send someone to find a girl for him. So, and then they leave, and then Lord Krishna says, see, it's you again. We are lost in this idea of prayers being begging. When you and I go to the temple, do we pray or do we beg? Think about it. Do we go there to give or do we go there to get? And that's why we study our prayers. There's an evolution. We start off with our tamasic prayers, dark prayers. I pray that my neighbor gets a flat tire so they can't get to work so I can buy a bigger house than them. Voodoo, it's a dark prayer. It's so someone else gets hurt. People pray like that. Then we grow up. We get to our Rajasic prayers. I pray that my son gets into the best school above anyone else. So it's not someone else gets hurt, but it's only I. Meaning my immediate circle is the beneficiary. Then I grow up more and I begin to pray with sattva. I pray that they find a cure for juvenile diabetes. See, everyone's included in that. And then I get to the highest prayer. It's not tamasic, it's not dark, it's not selfish, it's not light, it is divine. And what is that divine prayer? Silence. I don't ask for anything. Thy will be done. I simply want to be in your presence. Remember last year when Swami Shantananda had come? I'm sure he talked about Dhruva. And Dhruva went and did his tapas. And what tapas he did. And when the Lord came, why did he do that tapas? Because he wanted to be in a place that nobody can move him. He wanted to be a great king, let's put it simply. And he did his focus on the Lord, and Bhagavan Vishnu appears. And Bhagavan Vishnu asks Dhruva, young boy, if you ask any young boy, what do you want, right? They'll go on and on and on and on. What does Dhruva say? Nothing. He can't open his mouth. It was only when Lord Bhagavan Vishnu touched him with his conch that he began saying praise of him. Even then he didn't ask of anything. But the Lord said, hey, just ask me of something. And this is how the prayer went. But it was just silence. So not begging, but praying. Surrender. If this is, and I'm going to change the word here to make this more easy to understand. We call it free will versus fate, right? This word fate should be turned into God's will. Is it free will versus God's will? We had analyzed free will. Now we're analyzing God's will. God's will is the truth because God is the truth. And God is full presence, full knowledge, full power. So this is God that is engaged in whatever we want to call it. So what is my relationship? I should watch God's play that's going on. And if God gives me good, I surrender to that. If God gives me bad, I surrender to that. Think about how much our life can change if we tune into the truth. We humans are very quick to judge people. And you know where it starts? We start judging ourselves first. We judge our bodies, our minds, our intellect, because we feel we're separate. If I'm separate and I look at you, there's natural that I'm going to start comparing myself. I'm fatter, I'm stronger, I'm smarter, I'm less brilliant, whatever it may be. If there's oneness, is there any comparison? When I brush my teeth and I'm wearing a t-shirt, I don't look at my left elbow and say, hey, you're doing much better than the right elbow, you know? I put more cream on my left elbow. There's no comparison. This is just one. I think we don't compare our teeth. We don't compare our fingers. We don't compare the strands of hair or our ears. This is just one. But if there's separation, see, I see your hair and my hair, right? yours is a little bit wider, mine's a little bit shorter, and so on and so forth. And that comparison. And wherever there's comparison, you know what comes with it? Emotional baggage in the form of likes and dislikes. And when we don't do anything about likes and dislikes, you know what they turn into? Love and hatred. And not noble love. I mean attachment love. But it all came from separation. So I was saying that we're quick to judge people. But isn't it God that made us the way we are? What gave me the authority to judge you? This is so beautifully shown in Upanishad Gaya. You'll get to this episode. We're going to start watching it in our centers here. Ashtavakra. Young boy born with 8 crooked parts of his body. He would walk on a stick, a straight up stick, and he would use that as his support. And he goes to Raja Janaka's palace. Now, Raja Janaka is a great Mahatma. That's a redundant statement, right? Great Mahatma. He's a Mahatma. And what do Mahatmas do? They have satsang. Despite knowing Brahman, they still have satsang. So all of this satsang is going on. And Ashtavakra comes. Rishi Ashtavakra comes. And some of the people who are engaged in satsang, they start laughing at the way he's walking, the way he looks. And he hears this. So he calls out to Raja Janaka and says that, I thought that this was an assembly of the wise people. I thought that this was satsang that was happening. And Raja Janaka, again, a noble-minded person, he says this is an assembly of wise people. This is satsang that's going on. And then Ashtavakra Rishi says, then why are they laughing at God's creation? Why are they laughing at God's design? He didn't create himself like that. Wasn't it God's will that ordained this? So who are they laughing at? Now put ourselves in the picture. Who are we judging? Are we judging a separation? Are we judging the Creator? We never know someone's history. And that's why I read an awesome quote that said, when we judge someone, it doesn't define them, it defines us. Who knows what kind of history someone had, good or bad? When we begin to align with God's will, we practice surrender, and surrender and acceptance go hand in hand. I surrender to God's will, so all that comes I accept. It is his or her will. Now we have to ask ourselves, is this true? So I've shared thoughts on free will. I've shared thoughts on God's will. Which one makes more sense? We fall in between. We know that God's will exists, but we keep believing in free will. See, I'm accepting that people don't turn their cell phones off right now, despite being in satsang. We know that God's will exists, which is why you're here. If you were 100% about free will, you would not be here right now. We feel free will, but we know that's not accurate. We know that's not the truth, but we don't know the truth yet. We haven't aligned ourselves fully with the truth, so we're trying to reconcile this. Think deeply about why you are here. Why am I here? We keep saying, I do, but we know every time we say I do, we don't feel good about it. Deep down, we don't feel good about it. We may say, yeah, I do, but inside I feel, hey, am I the one who's truly doing? And whenever something comes in our life, am I really the one who deserves? Just because we don't see the truth doesn't mean the truth is not there. Puja Swami Tejamayana shared an awesome quote. God is like poverty. Think why? They see everyone, but nobody sees them. People who are suffering in poverty, they see all of us. But when do we see people in poverty? God sees all of us, but do you and I see God? In a visual way. So here's my finger. My finger is saying, hey, I'm the one who chooses to go up. I'm the one who chooses to go down. And I keep doing this. Is that the truth? Then my hand steps in. Hey, finger, what are you talking about? I'm the one who decides if you go up or down. But then my arm steps in. Hey, hand, what are you talking about? I'm the one who decides up and down. And see how this separation slowly becomes unity. Less and less divisions till finally it's the body. Not even the body, it's the mind. Not even the mind, it is the spirit. That is the fundamental factor that allows this. Remove the spirit, can't move your finger. That separation now, is my finger right? So here you and I are a drop in this ocean saying, we are the most important, and the most important person is always right. In our scriptures, for any idea to be accepted, it has to be supported in 3 ways. Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhuti. This is why I love the scriptures, is because it's not based on faith only. There is a component of faith, no doubt, but it is a very sound system where there has to be a lot of agreements before we accept. If these factors don't point in this direction, we don't follow that direction. Shruti is scriptures. Yukti is logic. Anubhuti is experience. So let's do a brief review here. Okay? The subject matter is free will versus God's will. Stop using the word fate. Start using the word God's will. Free will versus God's will. Is free will true? I believe I'm the ego. I believe I'm separate. So I believe I do and I deserve. That is the factors involved in free will. We have to ask ourselves, am I the ego? Am I separate? Am I the only one who's doing it? Even at a practical level, isn't the electricity company involved in this right now? And so many others. And so deserving too. Do I deserve this? Only. So then we look at God's will. We say that God is the truth. So then God is that oneness. And in this oneness then, I should just watch God's will play out in which there is full surrender. So is this true? We want to identify with the latter. Let's see how. In Srimad Bhagavad Gita, you have Prince Arjuna. Prince Arjuna is awesome in every which way. He's physically awesome, he's mentally awesome, he's intellectually awesome, he's financially awesome, he's archery awesome, he's language awesome, he's awesome in every which way. You know, when they came out of incognito, the Kauravas were already waiting for them. And they started attacking them. And Prince Arjuna threw off his costume and he took them on by himself. They all retreated from him, one person. Dronacharya, Bhishmacharya, Duryodhana, they couldn't do anything. Now he has 1 million people with him. How come this fear came in? Did he put that fear there, or did Lord Krishna put that fear there? Think, do you really think Arjuna would have gotten scared when he did this already by himself? Now he has 1 million people behind him, and he all of a sudden got scared. I shared with you, one of my batchmates wrote a letter as an exercise to that old man who was chanting Sanskrit grammar rules in Bhajagovinda. Because that old man was chanting Sanskrit grammar rules in Varanasi, we got Bhajagovinda, right? Why did Arjuna have that fear? Because it was God's will that planted that fear in him, so God's will can teach him to go past that fear. But not just Prince Arjuna, all of us too. That's a good expression of how God is love. In that same scripture, in the 11th chapter, Prince Arjuna is now growing up in his faith. You say you're this universe. Show me. So Lord Krishna says, okay. And it's not that he assumes 1,000 legs and hands and eyes. He only removes Arjuna's idea of separation. He takes those eyes away. And he sees 1,000 heads and 1,000 eyes and hands. And he sees everyone going into Lord Krishna's mouth. And Lord Krishna's as if laughing at him, saying, these people are already dead, whether you should pick up an arrow, a bow, or not. What's Arjuna's problem? He thinks he's the doer. So he's going to become the deserter. I'm going to kill, and so I'm going to suffer. And Lord Krishna is checking him. Hey, are you really the one who's doing and deserting? And then what does Arjuna say? Okay, go put my eyes back. I don't want to see you like this. Remember, it requires the right mindset to understand such a message. Not just for this lifetime, for billions of lifetimes we've lived. I do. We've lived a free will. And now the message is coming. This is all God's will. It's going to be challenging to assimilate this. And Arjuna is a classic example of that. Here too, we often read in our scriptures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a lot of cursing that goes on in Srimad Bhagavatam. It seems like every story has some sort of curse there. But perspective, we take a curse as something being negative. But who's the ones who are giving the curses? Is it animals? Is it ordinary beings? It is those pure-minded people. And what are they doing? They're only telling what is already going to happen. That curse is never a curse, it's always a blessing. Whether Raja Parikshit put that snake, the skin of the snake on that rishi or not, he was going to die in that period of time. But he did it, and he got cursed as protection. That, hey, now you have 1 week. You know you have 1 week. Live your life in an important way. A curse is not in the negative. A curse is someone who is pure, who knows God's will, is saying that, hey, this is how God's will is going to play out. It is protection. Even yesterday when we chanted Puja Swami Chinmayananda's 108 names, one of them was Satya Sankalpaya Namaha. That anything that in this case Puja Swami Chinmayananda said, Satya, his sankalpa, his intention became the truth. And if anyone who has met Puja Swami Chinmayananda physically can verify that, can validate that. Whatever he said became true. And I physically never met him. I only heard from other senior acharyas and senior devotees who have validated this. But I'm going to tell you a couple of experiences of my own with Puja Swami Tejamaya. When I get to that, right now I'm only focusing on Shruti. The scriptures are saying God's will. And I talked about why did Arjuna have fear? Lord Krishna himself says these people are dead whether you do anything or not. Shruti. Let's go to Yukti, logic. Is God's will logical? If there's only oneness, there's actually no God's will either. Will is only when there's two. Okay? I need you to really think deeply about this. Free will is always in duality. God's will is in duality as well. If there's only oneness, there is no will. So now I'm going to tell you how this will make more sense. I was teaching a group of kids, and they were all sitting in a circle, and I gave each of them 2 handfuls of Legos. And they were super loud, and when they saw the Legos, it was like samadhi. They're in their contemplation. And I said, now you have 15 minutes to build whatever you want. And it went from so many decibels to complete silence. Secret parenting, buy Legos. Give them to your kids. And for 15 minutes, again, they were expressing samadhana, total focus on their work. And then each child was given some time to share what they made. And they built houses and planes and guns and so on. And after they had all finished and they were so happy, they thought I was going to say, now you can play with it. What did I ask them to do? Break them. And piece by piece, you saw their hearts break at each brick they were taking off. They're thinking, what kind of cruel teacher is this? And then they had their piles of Legos again. And I asked them, what did you have in the beginning? Legos. What did you have in the middle? You said all of these forms and you said all of these names, but what did you have in the middle? Legos. And what did you have at the end? Legos. Where is the will in all of this? It was Legos before, it was Legos during, it was Legos at the end. This idea of will, these forms and names, is just a expression. It's just a superficial experience. Like you and I. What are we? We're just earth. That's what anna means, that which is eaten and that which eats. Right? First we eat food and then what happens? We get eaten. We will all become soil and become plants. People are scared, my house is near a cemetery. I don't know if I should live there. Your house is a cemetery. How many people have died in that plot of land in however many years? So many. Right? Our fears are so self-created. If we think logically, everywhere. How many people must have died in this plot? Even more, it's a bigger plot of land. How many people must have died at Disneyland? 100 acres just in the parking lot. All that is happening is being. Okay? We have names, we have forms, but beyond the names and forms is our essence. The essence doesn't do anything. Is electricity doing anything right now? It's just being. Electricity doesn't have any will, it just is. So even the idea of God's will is in duality. But in non-duality, there's no will. Okay. I hope you're enjoying. I shared at the beginning, it requires a lot of perspective and a lot of context. And I was initially hesitant to share thoughts on this for such reasons. But I'm learning a lot. So I do it again. Now I get to Anubhuti. Shruti, we talked about Gita. Yukti, I said, at the divine level, there is no will. There's no duality, so there's no will. At a experience level, you and I get what we're supposed to get. Ramana Maharshi shared, what is supposed to happen, you can try so hard for that not to happen, but that is going to happen. And if it's not going to happen, you can try so hard to make it happen, but it will not happen. As you and I become wiser, we come to understand and appreciate this. That we work so hard in our businesses, but our businesses will only make money if they're supposed to make money. We can try our best, and who knows what would happen. Being a parent too. We can try our best being parents, but sometimes our children will go left and sometimes our children will go right. I'm going to give you two very specific examples about how true this is. Chinmay Mission Niagara began in 1999. And Pujya Swami Tejamayana had come at that time. And small city, few activities. In 2001, my father had gone to the Dharma Seva course. Keep in mind, Niagara Falls is a city of 75,000 people. Very small. No extended community. And my father had said, our center is just starting, we need an acharya. Imagine a city of 75,000 people. And everyone goes to Puja Swami. Tejamanand says we need an acharya. You said the same thing. And Guruji in his assertive expression said, go create your own. Said this to my father in 2001. Go create your own acharya. Let's fast forward some years. So actually, I should give you some more context to that. When I was in high school, I'll be writing more. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a phys ed teacher because I loved playing soccer. And I thought, hey, I can get paid to encourage kids to play soccer. Then I became a firefighter because I watched the movie Backdraft and I was like, whoa, this seems like a great profession. Then it shifted to being a dentist and finally an ophthalmologist. So in high school, even being in Canada, I went and I wrote my SATs because to go to an American school, you need to have an SAT. I took all of my science classes. It is December, and our new semester in high school started January. And I just had this random thought is, I think I'm going to go into business. No pressure from family. My parents were hands off. No pressure from anyone. I'm just going to go into business. So I quickly changed my classes for that upcoming semester and did my business requirements. And went to business school and then did commercial real estate and went to the Vedanta course. If I had gone into medicine, I would have been in residency at the time that this Vedanta course would have come up. And I wouldn't have been able to study Vedanta and discover what I love. What is supposed to happen is going to happen. That I was going into business, science, and what? Why did that thought come to take up business when all of these years it's been geared towards science, whether dentistry or ophthalmology, it's still science. And the same thing with why did Guruji tell my father, go create your own? He doesn't tell all people, go create your own acharyas. This is what had happened. This is all God's will. Okay. I'm going to give us two simple, practical ways to change knowing all of this. Number one, choose. Choose whether you believe in free will or God's will. And whatever you choose, do it fully. Don't jump between both. That is irresponsible. We have to be consistent with what we believe. If I believe in free will, then fine, I do, but then I should also accept that I deserve. And I say this consistency. Many people, when they hear this message, oh, everything is fate, perfect. I have an exam tomorrow, I'm not going to study. And this is the inconsistency I'm talking about. This is the lack of thinking that I'm talking about. If I'm fated to get 95 on tomorrow's exam, I will also be fated to study tonight. Correct. If I'm fated to get 55, I will also be fated to not study tonight. But we always presume that free will is in the present and fate is in the future. But who said it? Right? See, that's just the philosophy of convenience. It's convenient to think that. It is lazy to think that. Choose one and go fully. If I believe in free will, go with that. If you believe in God's will, go with that. But you cannot jump between both. In our scriptures, when Lord Krishna says, lift yourself by yourself, who is he talking to? A jiva. He's talking to an ego. An ego doesn't believe in God's will. At that time, Arjuna believes he's an ego, so he has to talk at an ego perspective. Arjuna, yes, you lift yourself by yourself. But as he lifts himself, he'll start to say, hey, am I really the one who's lifting myself? And one starts to align with God's will. I'll present it differently. Suppose Sanatana Dharma is a radical religion, and I say Shiva is the only way. What am I even saying that? Shaivites, Vaishnavites, right? We think only Shiva or only Vishnu. So suppose I'm a Shaivite. Only Shiva. Is that right or wrong? It is right. At that level of maturity I'm at, it is right. If you tell me otherwise, I'll fall off the path. I won't worship anyone. But as I begin to worship Lord Shiva, I'll say, hey, Lord Shiva's greatest devotee is Lord Vishnu. As I keep walking, I'll say, hey, they're the same. So this idea of choose one. If it's not God's will, fine. Let it be free will. And as one walks this, one will realize this is God's will. As one walks God's will, there's no will. There's just being. Choose. The second point is, do your best and leave the rest. If you believe in free will, do your best. What else can you do? If it's God's will, do your best. It's not you doing your best, it's the best is happening. Either way, that best should be there. And if one truly does their best, they become very accepting. Why we find it so difficult to accept life is because perhaps we're not doing our best. It's always eating at us. I could have done better, I could have done better, I could have done better. But if I've done my best, what is there to worry about? What is there to stress out about? What else could you have done? Parents do their best with their second children. They tend to make mistakes with their first children because they don't know any better. And then they do their best with their second. And the third children, they tend to, whatever happens, happens. It's like free will, God's will, and in between is they do their best. Now, seriously speaking, not that you should ever be serious if you're a parent. You can only operate with what you know, correct? And if I only know so much and I operate with that, and later on I find it's not correct, what could I have done? That's all I knew. And we appreciate that when it comes to knowledge. But this has to apply to life too, to action. Do your best. And in doing so, it makes one, I already talked about accepting, humble. Puja Swami Tejamayana was asked, what is the defining quality of a spiritual-minded person? And his response, humility. Because they know there's a greater power that is flowing through them to the world around them. No different than, has anyone been to the Golden Temple in Amritsar? If you are to go there, you have to wear a hat. You have to wear a cloth over your head, or you have to have your chunni over your head. Why? Is it to prevent your hair from going into the food that they're going to give you at the end? And so that we're very clear that the Guru's hand is why we're here. It's Guru Dwara. How did we get to the door of the Guru? It's the Guru's hand, the grace that brought us here. It's God's grace that brought us here. We should never think otherwise. This is why we have such traditions. It makes one very humble. If I think that all that has happened is because of Guru's grace and God's guidance, grace and Guru's guidance, how can I ever truly believe in I? I may say I, but I shouldn't truly believe in the concept of I. Free will versus God's will? God's will won. In tonight's debate, the winner is God's will. Through Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhuti, this is God's will. Now, if you've understood this, that is God's will. If you've not understood this, that is also God's will. If I've done a good job, that is God's will. If I've done a bad job, that is God's will. If your internet connection is not working, that's God's will. If it is working, that's God's will too. See how fun life becomes then. That's what I said. We intellectually appreciate God's will, but we feel free will. I should start becoming an observer. That's how I start rising. It's like getting to rung 10. I can't get from rung 1 to rung 10. So what are those in-between rungs? Start to watch more. Watch God flowing through one to the world around you. with Bhagavan Krishna's flute, that emptiness, so he can flow through us. Fair. Okay. As is our tradition, the last 15 minutes to half an hour, you have some index cards. I don't know if you have any questions based on what was shared today, but this will be the tradition. Come with sheets of paper, or if you have index cards, and write your questions down, and I will spend the remaining time trying to address them. And I know, even if I do the same discourse next month, it'll be completely new, because it's tough. And it's most difficult because we're not used to this idea of God's will. Does anyone have any prepared questions right now? Sure, do you mind writing it down? Yeah, and I only say this. I'll explain why. It's not because I'm obsessive compulsive. This is being recorded. And if someone shares something that is not universal in outlook, if it's not a godly question or a godly response, then it corrupts what has been shared right now. So by people writing it down, then I can filter certain words that may be inappropriate or for certain concepts. So it's simply for everyone's protection. If it was you and I one-on-one, I understand it. But see, the people who are watching online may take it out of context. See how the need for me to regulate that context. Every time, please remember this is going to happen, because every time I have to explain, okay, now it's question and answer time. Then you write your questions, write them during the discourse. In Ramayana, we often point fingers at Lord Rama, and he sent his wife to the forest. They already knew this was going to happen. The real Mother Lakshmi was never kidnapped. That was a hologram of Mother Lakshmi. If one studies any Ramayana, it is not the real Mother Lakshmi that is kidnapped by Ravana. It is simply a shell of hers that is kidnapped. Have you been to the ghost ride at Disney World or Disneyland? And you sit in the ride and you look in the mirror and it's like a ghost is sitting in the cart with you. That's what had happened. Ravana never had the real Mother Lakshmi. He only had an expression of her. Now you tell me, that's free will or God's will? They already knew that this was going to play out like this. You'll see in the second season of Upanishad Ganga, when Mother Kunti curses Lord Krishna and says, the way that all of my sons have died and all of my daughter-in-laws have become widows, on your side of the family it's going to happen too. Do you really think that Gandhari would have shared something like that? That was Lord Krishna that was speaking through her, because he needed a means to end the arrogance and ego of everyone on his side as well. Endless expressions of that. It requires more connecting of the dots to make this happen. Okay, bring me them as they've come so I can start answering them. Whatever happens, is it due to our past karmas? That's enough. There's so many questions now. Whatever happens, is it due to our past karmas? Yes. We have to ask ourselves, how did these karmas get initiated? Right? We tend to have this idea that there was 0 karmas and all of a sudden it became some karmas and so on and so forth. Fine. But who started all of this? Who gave that first karma? Who projected that first karma? Even go into genes, okay? How come my genes are the way they are? Because my father. How come my father's and mother's genes are the way they are? Because of theirs. And you keep on going. Where did it begin? How come we are the way we are? Okay, so now I am a, let's say, jealous person. And now I'm in this present embodiment. I'm going to have an inclination towards jealousy. But now the thought comes in my mind, hey, jealousy is not healthy for you or anyone else. How come I have that thought? Who put such thoughts in our head? How many times have we experienced where we're very agitated, but all of a sudden this brilliant thought comes into our mind? Where did it come from? Or we're in a highly sattvic place and this terrible thought comes into our mind. Or we try to hold on to a thought, but we just can't. Like waking up from a dream, and I try so hard to remember what I dreamed about, but I just can't. This is the expression of God's grace. The thought to want to change is God's grace. We think it's an esoteric, abstract expression. The thought to change. The fact that you're all here, that is God's grace. That a thought occurred that I want to change in whatever capacity. How come your sons or husbands or daughters or mother-in-laws, they're not here? How come you're here? Everyone else has cars. Everyone else has time. How come you're here? So all of this happens to our past karmas, which we have to ask ourselves, who started our past karmas? What is past karmas? We like to think that it's my past karmas. It's always comes to possessiveness. Our past karmas are simply how God uses us. He says that I'm going to work my magic through your karmas. And you can believe that they're your past karmas, but really, this is how I'm going to work. Think like Prince Arjuna. How come he had that thought? Yesterday in your story, Krishna went to Yama and brought back Guru Sanjeevani's son. Why did he change what has already happened? Why did he not tell them that they should deal with it? Because this is what was meant to happen. Those parents were meant to experience the loss of their son and were meant to experience the coming back of their son too. Nothing is final until Bhagavan stamps it. Just because Lord Yama stamped it doesn't make it final. When Bhagavan, the Bhagavan stamps it, then it becomes final. Ajamila in Srimad Bhagavatam, he dies and Lord Yama's messengers are there to collect him. But his last word was Narayana. So Yama may have been ready to be there to collect him, but Narayana's messengers were, stand, he's coming with us. And I think the example that Pujya Swami Tejamayana uses is if there's capital punishment, you can still get a pardon from the president or the prime minister. They have the final say in whatever happens. If Rishi Sanjeevani's son was not meant to come back, then Lord Krishna would have taught him that you should have accepted it. But he was meant to come back. How many times in our lives have we gone through it or we've met people who should have died but didn't? And how many times people who shouldn't have died did? Yama means discipline. Yama means control. Bhagavan Yama, who is the Lord of Death, doesn't come a fraction sooner or a fraction later. He comes when he's supposed to come. And if we can tune into this, there's no reason to fear death. This is a graduation. That I've finished what I'm fated to finish in this embodiment, and now I've graduated and I'm going to continue. If you've learned how to multiply till 5 in grade 3, you just keep staying there. Proudly. You want to learn more. So you need a new field to learn that. So you are saying that we have to choose between free will and God's will. Okay? We cannot choose one at a time and another at a different time. That's not true. When you were growing up, you loved India. Now, okay, go live in India again. It's impossible. We change. This is what I was saying is, if I only believe in Lord Shiva, today, Shiva and no Vishnu, no Devi, no, that's all, you're all wrong. That's right for me at this time. But as I evolve, I say, oh, and Lord Vishnu, and Devi, and Buddha, and so on. So choose one. I said take up the free will. And as we become more and more responsible for doing and deserving, we'll realize it's not just me, but it is we. It's not we, but it's he. It's not he, just me. And it's a full evolution like that. But you have to start somewhere. Or one can try to tune into God's will and keep on letting go of that free will. It certainly is you choose one and then at another time. Why I'm saying not both is because we tend to just use that to our convenience. It's like that joke that is sent in email sometimes. So a couple is having dinner and they pay for their bill and they give that money and the waiter doesn't come back and they're waiting for their change. And they're waiting. So they finally find that waiter and say, hey, where's our change? And he says, change should come from within. Right? That's such convenience. So pick one. Let it not be convenience. Let it be real. How do you explain the Holocaust and other atrocities as God's will? In God's will, there is no will. There is only God. If electricity were given a personality, and electricity walked in here, and we said, hey, electricity, how come you keep going away in India? And how come you're so bright here and hot there and cold there? What will electricity say? What are you talking about? I'm everywhere, and I'm just being. I'm not born, I don't die, I don't kill, I don't save, I just am. In God's world, who's born? In God's world, who dies? Who's the killer? Who's the saint? It's just God. And in the moment, this is very difficult to absorb. Suppose something tragic, traumatic happened to me. Then my son passes away. And someone comes and says, that's God's will. I won't accept that. Naturally, one cannot accept that in the moment when so much hardship is being experienced in the hands, the heart, the head. But after that expression passes, it is only knowledge that will save me. That my son was never really my son at a possessive level. That my son has graduated, as I just mentioned. He was supposed to experience that and move on to other experiences. And as I keep on going higher in my perspective, there's no birth and no death. There's no good and no bad. There's no hot, no cold. There is no duality. There's no love either. Love is where there's two. I only love someone else. But there's only one. There's no love either. Whenever there's a hardship in life, we have to go through 3 sequences. Okay, my son has passed away. Number 1, expression. Cry. Hold my hand. Hug me. Tell me it's going to be okay. All of that should happen. Expression. Number 2 is knowledge. And here is where, since we talked about karmas, we only get what we deserve. It's impossible to get something that we don't deserve. Why? Who's the one who's governing these laws? It is not a human being. It's not a Supreme Court judge. It is not a human. Humans are subject to error. We have some knowledge and some power. But if I have total knowledge and total power, where is the mistake then? It's not applicable. This is why I said we are so enmeshed in being egotistical. We force our concepts onto God. Humans have a purpose. We are incomplete, so we have a purpose in life. God is not incomplete, so I cannot say, why did you create all of this? What is your purpose? That is a human concept. Human concepts cannot apply to the divine. I can't ask an animal, why did you kill that other animal? Right? Hunger, instinct. Human concepts and animal concepts, you can't mix them. So everything that happens because we deserve this. The Lord is the Karma Phala Data. First 3 shlokas of Upadeshara clear this out right away. Knowledge. Third way, third part of the sequence to let go of loss or trauma is time. After I have such negative memories and I start doing other things, I see my grandkids, or I travel somewhere, I move somewhere, I'm creating new memories then. As I create new memories, I let go of old memories. And that's okay. We outgrow our friends, right? We don't have the same friends we had when we were 5 years old. It's okay. We grow up in different ways. So how do you explain these atrocities? Number 1, there's no atrocity. It's just God. Number 2 is we get what we deserve. And number 3 is to go through this sequence. How much free will do we have? That's up to you. How much free will do we have? 0. But if I fully believe I'm the ego, then I have full free will. This is what Lord Krishna says, again, chapter 6, shloka 5, lift yourself by yourself. But then how come all of a sudden in chapter 11, he says all of this is happening because of me? He peppers, most of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita is, Arjuna, you do it, you do it, you do it. But in between, he throws in those nuggets that are saying, really it's me. You do it, you do it, you do it, but really it's me. To show him that, yeah, keep growing, but this is where you have to grow to. At the end, he says, now you do what you want. And he knows that Arjuna is going to say, I'm going to do what you told me. Do you think he would have said that if he wasn't going to do it? It's like you should never ask people for feedback unless you're going to act on that feedback. If you're not going to act on it, don't ask them that. Only ask them if you know you're going to act on it. Is the action carried out at present free will? The truth is no. But we're not aligned with the truth right now, so yes. You are choosing the thought that you have right now. I'm choosing the word that I'm saying right now. But if I go deeper is, how come I'm saying this? How come you're thinking this? Because of me. Who is me? Is me the body? Can the body think? Is it the mind? What if the spirit is taken away? Or who put those patterns in the mind? Is it the intellect? Same goes. Is it the ego? Does separation really exist? This is all Ramana Maharishi's message. Who are you? Free will or God's will? How to answer that question? Who are you? If you are the ego, free will. If you are not the ego, it is God's will. And Ramana Maharishi also says in Upadeshara, God realization is self-realization. If I align myself with God's will, I will automatically know that there's no will. It is just Brahman. So God's will is good enough. Don't think, oh, how do I go past God's will? Just get there. Everything will be taken care of as long as we get to God's will. Okay. Please, please, please keep thinking about this because it's fascinating, because it's fun, because it's freedom. If I can really understand and appreciate this is God's will, I can't help but smile then. But as long as I keep thinking it's I don't have enough, just some smiles, not total smiles. So it's just, just fake smile. Like pictures. I have another class with one of our satellite centers, so I'm going to finish early today and to do another 1-hour class. We'll See you all tomorrow and the day after and the next Maktam forever. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhaveet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.